Yes, thank you, Paula. You're getting slower. Yeah, we also, I don't know, yeah, I was gonna say, you know, if you remember, but some months ago, maybe about a year ago, we also wrote like that pSESYNTH constitution, like about what we envision in terms of, you know, the life and the future of the data in the database. So I think this is like an interesting document that we may bring later on today and just discuss how all these things blend together to try to make the most open research possible, where everybody benefits, especially the people who are usually excluded from those. So without any further wait, I will give the floor to Gerbrand, who is a lot more qualified than me. And yeah, I mean, Gerbrand, the floor is yours. And yeah, if you need anything from us, just let us know. And we're looking forward to hear your thoughts on the topic.
Yes, thanks a lot, Manuel, for that steaming introduction. That's always nice. Yeah, and thank you all for inviting me here to speak in your larger event. I wasn't able to participate as much as I would like to have so far because of teaching, but it was great to see that I was able to log in every now and then, and great to see yesterday these priority questions. That was really nice. And that links a little bit on a sort of a meta level to what I want to talk about today about open collaboration and the pSESYNTH guidelines. So just a few, before I start, a few things, please interrupt me at any time. Like this is not a very formal presentation where I need to send a lot of information to you. It's really also about getting your perspectives and getting your experiences. So if anything is unclear, or if you disagree, or if you want to share, that would actually, I would really appreciate it, because it would enrich the let's say the thoughts, the ideas. That would be very welcome. It's great to see also people from different time zones here. That was actually one of the things I wanted to talk about as well, is how do we deal with different time zones? Well, I'm not saying that I have the solution, but at least it's clear now that this is an issue. It's nice that we see people doing the effort to being here. That's really much appreciated. And also the recording in a way is nice as a sort of a backup for people that still cannot make it because of, well, for instance, teaching obligations or anything else. That's great. Oh yeah, and final thing before I start, I have this later in the end, but the let's say the goal that I have for this sort of topic, I always like to have sort of an output or product in mind, not only the interesting discussion, but also to work towards something. What I would like to do, I'm still in very early stage, is to write sort of a perspective article about open collaboration. And of course, while writing this article, I also pitched it to Xavi and Charuta Emmanuel a few months ago. I think we agreed that if we want to do something like that, then you also need to do open yourself in that process, right? You cannot write top-down something about open collaboration. If you want to write something about it, you should do that also in an open fashion. So that's a bit the idea, and in a way, this is the starting point today, I feel. So, okay, sorry for the long intro, but I will just get started. So a bit about myself and about the research that I'm doing is, well, quite a lot in tropical regions. This is just an example that I took from a paper about the Amazon. So maybe a bit different than some of you is that I use quite a lot of, look quite a lot at modern times, modern climate. And this was, here I was studying the effect of a drought in the Amazon using satellite data. So these are the top figures, the two on the top, the maps. And then in the bottom is some data. There's some satellite data in there, like the purple is the SIF. This is sort of a proxy for photosynthesis. But all the other ones, sort of the gold SW is the shortwave radiation, the precipitation in gray, and the GPP, the photosynthesis in blue. Like these three other data sets, they are locally measured in the Amazon by local researchers from Brazil. And this was the first paper that I really got experienced, let's say, firsthand, how to collaborate with people me being from the global north with people from the global south. And I was a little bit surprised by some of the interactions we had. Like, it was a little bit different than with my colleagues here in the global north when I was talking about sharing data or working together. And at first I was really a bit annoyed by that, I can say. Like, they were not really open and they didn't want to share their data. So initially I find that very annoying. But later I came to realize, like, that took some time, that the people that I worked with in Brazil, that quite a lot of times they were taken advantage of by researchers in the global north, right? They gave their data and they didn't hear anything. And then a year later, there was a paper published with their data, without their contribution, without them being co-author, anything like that. So then I started to understand it a little bit better. So yeah, and here's another example. Also for the Amazon Brazil, it's a bit more maybe related to what we are discussing today within pSESYNTH, but this is an overview of some of the records that we found in a sort of a different, how do you say it, exploratory study. We just wanted to find out, like, what kind of data is available for Brazil. If you look into a number of, well, we looked into 4 databases. So here we didn't dive super deep into literature to get all the data, that's out there. What we did here is we just looked into 4 databases: the NOAA paleo database, Pangea, Neotoma, and some thematic databases from Pages working groups. Basically, we try to combine everything in Brazil and plot it on this map. So it's not complete. There are more data sets out there in publications that are not in those data sets. Yeah. So the point here is that, yeah, we really rely on local researchers to collect all this data, and yeah, extremely important. So my personal mission, building equitable collaborations across the global north and global south that are mutually beneficial. And to be mutually beneficial, we also need to recognize, yeah, different starting points or different positions, right? So it requires us to dive a little bit deeper first, to explore a bit, like, okay, what is the situation? Where are you coming from, before we can, yeah, we can try to find beneficial ways to collaborate. So that's sort of the more, let's say, the introduction about the aims. What I wanted to show now is some open science publications that are already out there. So this is about FAIR. I think FAIR is known by all of you. I think it's also used quite a lot within pSESYNTH. Like, it's this findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable principles for data, let's say. So I think this is quite influential. This article that came out, for instance, when I applied for national funding in the Netherlands, then, like, also the funding agency asks me, like, how is your research fair? Like, when I, like, upfront already before the start, it's not something you do afterwards. You need to already, like, explain, like, why is my research that I'm proposing, why is it fair? How I'm going to share the data. So I think this is one of the success stories of open science. And this is really, I mean, I'm not sure if it works well in practice. That's of course a question, but at least, like, it has been accepted. People know about it, and people strive for better data sharing. Yeah. So, and as I said in this last bullet point, there's really a focus on data. So this is really not so much about the people, but this is more about the data, the metadata, etc. So let's say the hard scientific things. Then there was this other paper that came, I don't know what year it was actually, 2020, and this was, oh, I didn't have it here. Oh, doesn't matter. I think this was a little bit later, and in a way, sort of a response, I think, in the name that they chose, this CARE, sort of a response to FAIR. And in CARE, there's, well, it's more about, actually, it originates a little bit from indigenous data, mostly in the US. So it's about, where can you take a sample? Can you just run into a field and take a sample, or should you also, be aware of cultural heritage before you just do something? So the acronym stands for Collective Benefit, Authority to Control, Responsibility, and Ethics. So it's a bit more, let's say, the soft side of data handling and data science. I wanted to have a quick question to you all. Who of you was aware of the CARE principles?
Not really, no.
Uh,
I've
not before we met you, or at least I met you, Gerben. So
Yeah, exactly. So we know about it because we met you.
yeah.
Okay, so this is also the feeling that I have, that this is less adopted than fair. Fair, you see it everywhere. It's in a way, they've been very successful with this. Yeah, this one less. Maybe it's because it's really set. Is my, let's say, my only criticism on it is that it's really set within a US, or mostly the US environment, where there's a bit more tension between native people living there and people that came later. I don't know, but yeah. Anyhow, I
It's
think
also
that
maybe, yeah, maybe if I can just chime in,
yeah,
just one, as you said, like this one seems a lot more soft in terms of how to, implement those, sorry, those care principles, while the fair, they're really like hard, it's computer science, it's just about making it happen, and that makes it easier to enforce in a way, like, because it's just like make your data in that format and in that repository, and that really served on the, like, open access publications as well, so it just came together. Well, that one is a lot more refined in a way, like in the, you really need to, yeah, understand the context in which you want to work, and it's much harder, I imagine, to implement.
yeah. I think that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. It's hard to sort of say. For fair, you can say like, yes, I have done it. You tick the box. But for care, it's sort of like a never-ending story.
Exactly.
You need to care.
Exactly.
Yeah. But in the end, what I can see is that they decided to publish it in Data Science Journal, which says something, right? So I think it's a good thing that there are these sort of networks or pathways that are getting created. That Data Science Journal didn't shun them, and they,
Yeah,
with the word data, they said, okay, it is acceptable, right? Be it indigenous data and governance related data and whatnot, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good thing that it did appear in this data science journal. That's nice. Yeah, yeah. All right. If anyone else has something to say, don't hesitate to jump in. But I will continue now. So this is an article that I wrote as a larger collaboration, and this is about, it's another acronym, ICON. So people in this field like to use acronyms: integrated, coordinated, open, and networked science. And I think, well, how I summarize it is that in ICON you look a little bit more at um, uh, it's sort of a building on FAIR, but FAIR is really about the data, and people from that uh, have adopted this icon are saying like, no, we should not only, like, what the criticism about fair is sometimes that it's like an afterthought. Like, you are going into the field, you're measuring stuff, and then you take it home or you take it to your lab, and then when you publish it to a data repository, then you start to think, okay, what metadata should I include? What is the format that I should put my data into? And the idea of this icon is that people say like, no, you should do it like, it should start already before you go into the field. You should have, like, this is what the C for coordinated. There should be a coordinated effort that people can actually do this together, or that you already go there instead of then later after you have collected it, you put it online, but you go there and people are already aware that you are going. And if they can also say to you like, hey, by the way, if you're going into that field, then please also measure this, that you can, rather than afterwards collaborate, do it upfront and already collect your data into the standards, so that it's not like an additional procedure that you do afterwards, but before you go there, you also already have exactly in mind how you are going to report the data, which also means that you will have less gaps in your data. Like, this is often what happens with fair data. You have the big table with metadata that you fill, but then at some point you don't have some data because you just didn't measure it or didn't weren't aware that it was relevant. So again, this is looking a little bit at the similar to fair to the fair. It looks a little bit at the hard side, I think, of science. It's really about how to coordinate, manage things a bit. And what I like, so I was not the only one. So I was the first author of this article, but there were like multiple articles organized by AGU in different journals from AGU. No, one journal from AGU, Earth and Space Science, but different domains. with different author teams. So I was not a big inventor of this icon, but just for this specific field, I wrote the article. But yeah, when I thought about it, like what I see in my collaborations within pSESYNTH, but in other groups, it's really more about other things, like, do you trust people? Are you like, it's more about the softer things. I think in collaborations are more important than these hard things, and this is, I think, would be the let's say the focus of the article that I intend to write is, okay, how can we support each other? How can we, deal with different time zones? How can we, these kind of things. I'm not sure that we really should give very practical recommendations. I don't think that, but it's more about describing the problem in a bit abstract way, and then also maybe some abstract solutions or something like that, or highlighting key elements about a successful collaboration that is beneficial for all. So that should be it. So this was a quote that I had from a sort of a short comment in Nature. So I'll just read it out loud. I was quite shocked when I read it. It's about a researcher in Mexico. I think it's a woman, I recall, but what she says is, I saw foreign scientists come to our lab carrying high-tech instruments that we didn't have access to. We took the scientists to our field sites and taught them about the unique ecology of the mangroves. Sometimes they used our small lab to store or analyze their samples. Neither I nor anyone else on the team was ever asked to contribute on the papers that were published. So this is really like an extremely extreme example of this helicopter research. Like, really, researchers from the global north really take everything. They really depend on this local expertise, but they don't give credit to it. So this is really like terrible, and I think we should really try to avoid these kind of things. So this was my introduction, and what I would like to do now is hopefully with all of you is to talk a bit about the problem. Rahab has a hand raised. Please speak up.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for bringing this topic up, because I think this is really important, and especially from the African aspect, because sometimes you get researchers, they come and they only acknowledge those who are in the administrative positions. For instance, the head of departments, head of sections, or head of labs, but they get to go to the field with the junior researchers. For instance, they would collect sediment cores and take them away from the country. And some of these are professors, so they have students who never came to the field, but they have access of the sediment cores, and they will analyze those cores, and eventually they'll publish. And there will be a disconnect between the student who ends up analyzing the core and the person who helped retrieve the core. They will not even relate. There will be no communication between the two parties. So they will not know even who did this. They only know their professor. And then in the host institution here, only the professor will know who really did the coring. But because they are very low in the hierarchy, they only recognize the HOD of the department, who never even went to the field but facilitated because of their position. And you find that most of the younger researchers, or those who are coming or who interested to grow their career in science, they never get anywhere, because they are always blanketed by, in quotes, by the whole hierarchy or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with that?
Thanks a lot for sharing this, Rahab. I think it's a very, you really speak from first-hand experience, I believe, and this is really like a message that I think is important to share, and we should bring out there and try to make a change to this. So can you tell me, where are you working? You said you're working in Africa. Is it Northern Africa or Southern Africa?
Yeah, in Kenya, in East Africa.
Oh, Kenya. Okay.
Yeah. And in fact, I speak for many people, at least myself. I wouldn't say I'm so much a victim, but I've been a victim. But somehow I've broken the ceiling, but there are still so many people who are down there who do a lot in the field, in the labs. But when these sediment cores leave the country, for instance, or samples, they end up with a student who has no idea of who participated in the field. And when they publish, even this student, I wear their shoes, and I can imagine a student working so hard with the samples, but since they don't know who did the field work, it doesn't come like an obvious thing to try and dig out who else is involved in getting this core to the table, to the lab where they're working in. So the student will only see maybe the professor in charge or the senior scientist in charge of the project. And of course, everybody is quick to acknowledge the source of funding and the host institutions. But there are those people who are building their career, but they are not able to access funding. Their name can only shine through working and participating in various projects. But if that is again covered, they never get a chance. Or it takes forever or a long time by the time you get there. There's so much lost here.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for sharing this. Yeah, I think it's an important story. Are there others that want to share? I mean, feel free to share now within this group, but the alternative is that we open the Jamboard and that we do it in smaller groups. But I'm also happy to do it now in this large group because, well, we are not so large, so it's.
I think here Karina want to share her thoughts as well.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same that Rahab. I have not experienced this kind of thing yet, but for example, I was trying to participate with a German colleague, and my supervisor prevents me to do it because they say that they have bad experience with previous people coming to the country and taking the course and even publish work that was supposedly to be PhD or master student work. So, I mean, it's so well known in the country, this kind of problem, that earlier researchers like as me didn't experience, but we already feel like we should be taking care of this, or having like more, I don't know, be conscious of that. So that at the end prevent us to collaborate with other people that maybe are not wanting to store our data or this kind of thing. And the bad thing is that for us that have not funded at all in our country, or not enough funding, open collaboration or international collaboration maybe are the opportunity to do something that we couldn't do in our countries because of this issue. And could be something that encourage the work, that do that our work and our impact be higher, but these kind of things like prevent us to try to collaborate and share our data.
Yeah, thanks for sharing this as well. And sorry for asking, but I should have known that. But which country are you coming from?
Argentina.
Argentina. Yeah.
So I think Sarah, please go ahead. And Peter as well, actually.
Sorry, I just want to say that in some, at least in the country that I come from, some of these collaborations cannot only cannot be made freely with, for example, institutes. So they always most of them need to go through the government, and the government also will be known by that, and that's why in some cases the global north people will be in touch with the people from the government who doesn't care about the publications or sharing the I don't know, knowledge or the money or whatever is it. And another thing I wanted to say is that of course we have professors among us, and this is something that you guys can also teach your students. For example, I learned it from my professor, that one of my professors, that whatever he published, he had always like at least the least thing that he could do, it was to put the name of everyone, even the person who collaborated in coring, or I don't know, sieving the samples, or they could see, at least in the publications, their work was appreciated, not only putting the name of the institute in the acknowledgement part. So they were basically co-authors. So this is something that early career researchers can learn from their professors and teachers. Yeah.
Nice. And Sarah, were you based in Iran?
I'm based in Germany, but
Oh,
I did my PhD in Iran, and I'm working, basically. I'm interested in topics about Middle East and Iran.
And is that why I just try to understand what you mentioned about that the collaboration needs to go through the government.
In some cases.
Is that also, has it to do with like political, like things like sanctions between, difficult to collaborate with Iran? Is that something you experience?
Yeah, actually, yes, because I did my PhD in a site, in a very well-known site, prehistoric site in Iran, and this is one of the protected sites, and also, I don't know, UNESCO, blah blah blah. But every regulation goes through the government, and we wanted to collaborate, for example, with the local university there and local local government there. But at one point, when the sanctions started to get stronger and tougher on Iran, so our basically our connection to this local university was cut by people from upper hands. And yeah, so for example, we lost our second chance to go there and then dig some cores and take some samples, or our samples were destroyed during the transferring from Iran, and by people who wanted to know what we are doing because they didn't have any idea about the studies. So, and then, yeah, basically I had to do a lot of compromises to finish some part of my study in my PhD because of that.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing that. I think Charuta, and was it Peter that also wanted to say?
Peter. Yeah, Peter should go ahead.
You are muted, Peter. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't want to share, of course.
Maybe he just had to. He'll probably come back. He raised his hand earlier, so
Okay.
I imagine something. He'll probably just come back.
Then, if you want to share, Charuta, then.
Yeah. So I think what I wanted to show, which is already partially shared by Sarah. So like me being a very global South researcher, going to US to get my PhD, which was on Southeastern Europe. So once again, I was, global South researcher going to global North, but going to one region of Europe, which can be considered as global South by many perspectives. So I exactly experienced what you already shared between North and South. And what Sarah said is very true in the sense that it is always the character. It is perhaps always the thoughtfulness of the researchers who actually do it, and how you percolate it across the generations, academic generations, I mean. So not necessarily my supervisor was cognizant of that, and not that she wanted to include everybody, but I just realized that it is my duty as a researcher to include everybody on the acknowledgement, because they didn't really help us in doing research, science. They did help us in getting course, and any associated permits and other things, they have to go through the government and whatnot, the sort of those people. But I did not acknowledge those people because I didn't have to. It was not my funding mandate to do so. But I thought it as a very personal responsibility as a researcher to make sure that everybody who helped me on the field, they get acknowledged in that. So what I did as soon as this discussion started, I went to my papers and I literally saw whether I actually included people, and I realized I did. And I remember the discussion I had with my supervisor. She was asking me why your acknowledgement section is that long. And I asked, no, I mean, I asked her, I said, why not? Because these people have helped us. So at least their names have to be there. And that is exactly what Rahab has just suggested, that it should be mandatory for all samples to be collected, accompanied by list and contact details. So I think what we ended up doing, I remember the second coring I did in Serbia in one of the Oxbow lakes. So it was held by one small company, which was like a fishery company, which was doing fishing out of that oxbow. And person from that, he came and he helped us literally go to the center of that oxbow and help us actually get those samples. So, I mean, there was no reason perhaps for anybody to just even remember that person. That is how it is perceived in science, unfortunately. But it is very important. So I think I sort of held the ground and I said, "Oh, hi, Marco, and what's your last name?" And I did it. So I think I realized that I really need him, because unless he would have been there, we would not have gone to the center of that oxbow. I would not have gotten that core. I would not have processes. I would not have gotten pollen out of it and whatnot. So I think it is also very important how we make sure this happens on our personal level and how we percolate it. So this is one of the things. I think there could be some mandate driven or a sort of compliance driven. These are the words which are usually used in the business sense or the industry sense, but these are very important in terms of science industry to understand that otherwise it's going to be equally unfair all along, like since the beginning, and it will be just business as usual, right? So that is something which we can think about.
Yeah. All right. Thanks also for sharing that, Charuta. So I think we discussed a lot of the points that are here actually on the slide. Maybe not so. So we spoke about not receiving appropriate recognition, language barriers not so much, lack of research funds was also mentioned by Karina. Well, time zone issues for sure. We already mentioned that at the beginning of the meeting. Travel restrictions, a little bit maybe related to this to the sanction and these kind of things. Maybe the 2 points that we did not speak so much about is the second and the language barriers and the unstable internet. So these are more, let's say, very practical things. Like maybe can one of you share something? Is this something you have ever experienced? Like what I can share is that I was working with a colleague from Africa, and then in the Netherlands, and he was here for an exchange, and he worked with us, and then all of a sudden COVID came, and then he rushed home, like he rushed back to Africa because I think he still needed to stay with us for a couple of weeks. But then he said like, yeah, I mean, if I don't go home now, like I will be stuck here maybe. So we agreed like, okay, let's stop now, go home, and you can finish it there. But then it was very difficult, his situation at home, because he explained to us that like he had like a power outage like every day. Like he was just doing this coding and then running a model, but it was for us very hard to understand. Like, okay, why don't you just finish the task and do what you did here? Like we know you can do it, but we never realized like how these conditions are different. That he was he was dealing with power outages also during presentations that he gave to us. So yeah, does it resonate by some of you? I see Charuta. Yeah. Okay. All right, then I propose we move to the more positive things, and we move to the
I just want to say Olumide just entered, and Olumide would be the perfect person who can actually resonate with this. But Olumide, despite of all that, Olumide would always show up in every pSESYNTH meeting. It might happen that he might have to go in and out, but he will, once again catch up. So if he wants to, if you want to bring him to the state, and then Olumide can comment on it.
Thank you, Charita. I just came in now,
Yeah.
and I heard my name.
Yes, we were just discussing like how we can collaborate better globally and what the challenges are. So here we were talking a little bit about the problem, and we hope to talk after this about solutions. But one of the things we recognized was like, for instance, unstable internet. Or no access to computing infrastructure or these kind of things, very practical things. And we were
Yes,
wondering if you could
that's my
comment.
major challenge, actually.
Yeah.
That's my major challenge. And I have very little support from my university. And so I have to rely on personal efforts for my internet. And
Okay.
here in Nigeria, it's really, really not very good. So sometimes I'll be in a location where the internet will be so bad, and I'll just be scratching to meet up with some of my activities. But I live in Lagos. The internet is a bit better in Lagos, but my university is about 200 kilometers away from Lagos. So, and it's really, really bad when I am on campus. So that's actually my challenge. Then what I do is to try as much as possible to move my work schedule to Lagos when I have to be able to get better internet and sometimes better computing access. So those are some of the little things. But what I think would help me a lot is to if I have some time frame for responding to what I have to do, I can always, reschedule my program and then put things to where I would be able to make better use of my time and the internet and resources I have. But by and large, I believe I will catch up. Yeah, because I'm very much interested, and I've learned a lot from the activities so far. So I think it's not going to be all a story of catching up forever.
Well, thanks for sharing that story. I think it's yeah, it's important that this message get out there, right? That people realize like how much this impacts you, that you are changing your tasks around. Like what work should I do in a different city? What should I do in university? I mean, that takes a lot of mental capacity to manage all these kind of things. So that's really, and then you on top of that, you need to do the actual science. So that's really challenging. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And Sarah, you have your hand raised.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something about the second point, the language barriers, before we move on. Actually, this is something that I saw. I see it more often among the big projects. That, for example, countries or universities, institutions in the global north, they want to study a site in the global south. That they started now or more to recruit local people for doing that. But before that, it was not the case. And I saw many projects that they just, I don't know, because of many reasons, paying problems, or I don't know, it's easier to have someone that works, already know all the cutting edge methods and so on to do the project. And they recruit someone from their own country in the global north, and then put them in charge to study a site, I don't know, thousands of kilometers away without having any knowledge about the place, and then don't know, the person doesn't know the language and doesn't have access to the articles published in the language, in the local language, and so on. And I saw the results from some of those projects and some of those studies. And I could say that at least in a couple of cases, I see that even in the, I don't know, PhD defense, the person didn't have any idea what does he or she is talking about because of, I don't know, travel restrictions and other things that they didn't have a chance to go and visit it. For example, an American person working in Germany, a German institution, and the study site is in Uzbekistan. She didn't have any idea how the natural vegetation there looked like. And when I asked the question, she couldn't answer me. And it's not her fault. She will get the all attention and all negative vibe as a PhD student, let's say, but it's not her fault. It's the organizational fault that they didn't think about it to probably, I don't know, hire a person from Uzbekistan who knows the landscape, who knows everything, and so on. So just wanted to point out. Thank you.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting story. I think here I can resonate to that also a bit. I've heard some in my university some comments about this where there was a project, I think it was in India or Nepal, and then the professors that got the money, the fund, they were very hesitant to hire someone they did not know, like a person from abroad that actually came from the region that had all this local knowledge, but then still somehow they had this very strong preference for, yeah, but I know this person, like he or she has been doing their master thesis with me and we collaborated nicely. But then he or she is maybe from the Netherlands, like has no idea about, never went there. So yeah, it's so what I get from you is that you're saying we cannot blame the student for that, but it's really about the selection of the candidate. That's maybe the issue. All right, so for the sake of time, I propose we move. So I thank you all for sharing, and also great that a lot of you already went in. Oh, Manu has a...
No, just Rahab has a hand raised for quite a while, so she has a final story she wants to share.
Thanks.
No
Yes.
problem. That's what I'm here for.
Yes, and the reason I raised my hand, I really resonate with what Sarah have said, and now from what I see in the archaeology and those working in prehistory, like paleoanthropology, doing nowadays is that during the meetings, the local meetings, because most of the time it's not possible to make travel arrangement for even the excavators or those who are hunting fossils and things like that. But since within the region, the African region, maybe SASQA, IAQA, and EAPP are happening within the continent where the visa issues is not a huge challenge. Now, because we know some of these people have been working for many years in the field and they totally understand the landscape in a different way, but very important way to scientists, and the language and all that. So they are being invited and given an opportunity, a forum to present their role within the science field. Their role, it's not quite academic, it's more like a community, indigenous sort of, but it's opening now the mindset of the students who are invited from international students who come into these meetings, and they see the people who do the actual fossil collections or the actual field work, and somehow they relate. Somehow there's a message that cannot possibly be put into the publication papers, but this information eventually gets to cross-border and cross-generation. And I think this will be one way forward, to have forums where we invite people who have been in the field for quite a long time, but they are not in academic, but their role they are very important and relevant to the excelling of the science.
Thanks. Trying to take notes. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing this. And I love the idea that you present here. Yeah, so giving a platform to the people that are not represented in publications, but are so important for scientific progress. Yeah. So then I want to move to the next slide. Actually, what you were saying already sort of connects well to this, like potential solutions. And I heard a lot of things from you. And the questions that I wrote down here, we don't necessarily have to answer all of them. And a lot of the things that you already mentioned actually fit in somewhere here. how I wrote down these questions is what I think is important is that we should think about the different roles that people have, and like I like the example that Sarah gave also about a student from America in Germany studying Uzbekistan. Like, we cannot blame that student, but who can? Well, it's not about blaming, but who can? What should we do, and who is actually the person that can change something? Who is actually the person? So what can researchers do, like ourselves? What should institutes do? What should journals do, for instance? Like, do journals have a role? Like, if a journal sees a paper coming in with how do you say it? Data that's shared about a core that's been taken somewhere. Like, should that be on the checklist of the editor to ask, like, hey, who took the core? Did you do proper? Like, it can be just something very simple, can already have like a lot of effect if there's like just this maybe, I don't know. So this is something maybe journals could do. And what should funders do? The reason I put it like this is that if I look at FAIR, like this FAIR data principles, I really think one of the ways that this has been adopted so well is because it has been sort of formally integrated. Like, funders ask you, how is your research fair? And then you need to think about it. If you don't get the funding. So it's the same maybe for journals. Like, they are sort of an important gatekeeper, right? If a journal asks you, if you submit your manuscript and the journal asks, like, okay, but who took the samples? Then you will do effort to come up with names and do something. So I will stop talking now, and I think maybe we can discuss this for a couple of minutes, 5 minutes or so, and then I'll try to wrap up after that. Manuel.
Yeah, two things. First, I think this discussion is going really well, and unless you're busy, we can definitely expand it. We don't have to end at 10 or 9 UTC sharp. So
Okay.
that's first thing. I didn't check with the rest, but I'm sure that's fine. Yeah, what I wanted to say is also, like, I like the idea of the FAIR principles, but they're not always fair to the people. As you said in one of your slides, it's about the data, it's not about the people. And the FAIR principles, they can actually be quite hardcore on the people, because I'm always thinking about that a big data compilation that I've been a part of, like the Holocene temperature 12K. It's been a big synthesis of Holocene temperature records all over the world, and the way that has been done, it has been, everything is fair. It follows the FAIR principle. It checks all the boxes. Funders are happy. People think they've done the right thing because it's fair. But what happens is, like, as usual, most people or research groups from the global south have lost a lot through the process, because they were promised some stuff, some products. In the end, they got their name on one data product, and then, as usual, like the big Americans, big Westerners, they did the data paper, fine, 100 or so authors, you got your publication, but now the data are out there, they're public, and they keep using it, and they have, like, all these technology, money dues, they keep working on those data. So I think the FAIR principles, they are important, and they are definitely important, but we should also be aware that it's not because you follow these principles that there's more to think about. That's what I want to add, because I think many people just don't realize that, like, yeah, it's fair, yeah, but I mean, the acronym is maybe too good, because it doesn't always is. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to say, and I don't want to jeopardize all the time. But yeah, just a little warning that it's a very Western-centric view of things, I think, these principles, and they're good for us and not necessarily for everybody.
Yes. Yeah, indeed, the name is sort of misleading. Western.
Peter, you're back.
Oh, hey. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry for I fell off with the internet issue early on. But what I would like to say, probably as one of the things that I found out is once researchers, for example, they go to a remote place, or we go to a remote place, we collect, for example, cores, we go to the lab and do our analysis. we never go back to the same community where we collected these scores to actually inform them on why we collected them, what we found out, and what does it mean for them. So, for instance, in my experience, when I was doing my PhD, I was working in this delta, and then so I took the course, and we had this local person who always works with researchers in this remote area. But when I went back there to kind of give a workshop about my findings and this kind of thing, the local communities, they were asking me, we have seen tens of researchers come here over the years. They work with our young boys and girls, but we never know what they do. So is it just you come here for us, you give us money, and you take our information? So in this way, it's about the cause, but they never know why you do this. So I think moving forward, apart from the journal papers that we do as researchers, we should do some other kind of communication, maybe in form of a report or something that is really one in a language that the local community can understand. Probably, for example, in our case, it's Swahili. It would be easier for the local person to understand their local language better. We can break down the complex science things and have this kind of a publication that is really focused on the community where you were working, either remotely or. Also, another thing probably is when we are doing our feedback to the community, we should organize these kind of workshops to actually really where we were working if possible. Because sometimes we organize these workshops or giving feedback with our donors, but we organize these workshops in cities where these local communities can never get a chance to come and participate and know what is actually going on. So probably it's also our responsibility, our researchers, to kind of facilitate this kind of feedback back to the community where we worked. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Can I ask one thing, then move to Charuta? What was it that I wanted? Yeah, so one thing I really like what you said, that you went back to this site where you took samples and you gave this workshop. So I can imagine if you know, to integrate. So it seems that you did this for personal reasons, or that you maybe felt that this was good. But how can we? Would it be just thinking about a larger scale? Like, how could we make this more of a standard? Could we? Would this something that, like, if a funding agency sees like, hey, you're going somewhere to take samples, should they also then sort of? Should you also request money to actually go back to report findings?
Yes, and about my case, for example, I actually requested because we had worked, there were other people who worked there before and they had done a lot of research. But for my case, is that during the period when I was collecting the course, people were asking me all these questions. So when I was doing the analysis, I talked to the funders and I asked them, can you please put some kind of money aside, that after we do our analysis and if something that is going on, you can actually have some money to go back and kind of give feedback to the community. Yeah.
And you raised this question, just to understand, you raised this while the project, like, it was already going, and then you went there, you spoke with the local community, and then after having this interaction, you asked for money to get back.
Yeah. This was the case for my
yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Charuta?
Yeah. So once again, I think, like trying to make a sort of segue into what we or where we are in terms of solutions. So what Peter said is exactly has been my experience. And I think as a human being or as a person, I usually respond to the rules and regulations and nothing else. So I think we always speak to or do things certain way, and then we try to comply to things which are rules. So I think how can we make this sort of a very normal thing? As you said, like how can we make sure that this gets, like normalized, not in a negative sense, but this becomes the practice as such. So I think funders have the biggest role in it. And I can give you my personal example. Then I would have perhaps done it or I would have acknowledged them as such, and which has been Sarah's experience as well, which has been to an extent Rahav's experience as well, all that. But when I got the Marie Curie fellowship, within the fellowship itself, the proposal itself, European Union has started asking me this question. European Union has asked me, "Well, how is going to be your data collection policy? How is going to be your data usage policy and whatnot? So what are these? So are you going to embed fair principles or not? These are the fair principles. Can you basically brought them down and make sure that you submit something like a data management plan, which was a first mandatory kind of document to basically continue my Marie Curie fellowship into something. So I think funders have a very strong role in how it gets done. So we can speak to those then eventually those mandates for sure. So that is one thing perhaps. The second thing, which basically comes as part of your proposal, not just for saying it, because I was also involved in evaluating those proposals. So I think even evaluators from the EU perspective, they look at these proposals very seriously in terms of whether you are involving the third countries from the European Union perspective. If you are involving those countries, how you are going to develop certain capacity building programs. Can you organize something like, like in-person NC2 kind of workshop or any event, a small one, or sometimes if it is not possible to be there and in person, can you still do an virtual kind of thing? What are the ways you are engaging with the community you are going to, and that community being researchers, that community being, actual local people who are involved in that region, especially if you are doing social science research or proposing social science component, ethnographic component, and whatnot. So I think it becomes a very important responsibility of funders as such to actually have this as the selection criteria, evaluation criteria, and then it can get percolated. And then, of course, it's both top down and bottom up. So bottom up, of course, we can have initiatives like this. We can build communities which are a little more aware, get more and more aware as a researcher, right? Communities. But then also top down is very important from the funder perspective.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Rahab, if you want to chime in.
Okay. Sorry, I think I left my my microphone on, and I'm in
Oh,
a noisy environment. You should have shouted out. Now, just to point out now what is happening in most of the areas here in Kenya, and I believe also Tanzania is happening. Nowadays, when you go to the field and you want to do any kind of field work, you have to talk to the local authorities or the institution that you're collaborating with, the local institution that you're collaborating with. They are quite insisting that you must include the community engagement aspect. You have prior to your field work to go and meet the elders and the people that will be involved and explain to them exactly what you want to do. And then you leave it to them and the local learning institutions to decide if you need local laborers or local people to guide. They are the ones to decide whom you take. If it's a project that is a big project and it's taking a long time, they have a duty roster to make sure that at least most people are benefiting from this kind of engagement, and their children get to learn what kind of research you're doing and what this research would mean to them and to the rest of the world. So to some extent, I think it will be now a push from the ground to the funders, or even now the funders will be asking the question, which communities are you going to work with, and what concepts do you have? What concept have you signed with them? What permits do you have? And all this eventually, I think, will bring most of researchers to standards on how they need to go about it. The other thing was the question about what should journals do. I think it would be interesting to find out if for instance, I'm publishing some work from India, and all the names there are all Africans, are all coming from my country, and the research is done in India. Whether the reviewer or the journal should ask, how come we don't have any Indian in your authorship? How did you get to work without engaging them? Yeah, so some of these things are so obvious to pass through this sieving process, and such questions I think would be nice to ask the person publishing or the person doing. How come we are missing out on the local people? How did you manage your research without them?
Yeah.
So yes, this is things that we can that can help streamline the whole situation.
Yeah. Thanks, Rahab, for sharing that. I totally agree with these points you make. And while we were discussing this, I realized like how important funders are in journals. Like in our scientific careers, funders and journals, they really have sort of a critical position. I think that we need publications and we need money. So in a way, they are in a position that they can really make a change just by including such a question. I indeed believe what you say is that if they just have a question, like even if it's without, let's say, big consequences or anything, but just that you know that the journal is going to ask you, like, hey, why don't you have those people in your team? Then for sure you are thinking like, okay, next time I will make sure to have a good mix because I want to avoid this question because this publication is so important for my career. Like now. All right. Are there any other things before I move to the closure?
So yeah, just to say that yeah, we have at least like we can go until 10:30 without having too much of a problem. So we don't have to, if everybody has said what they had to say, that's fine as well. But just to make clear that we can extend a little bit on the time.
Yeah. All right. No, I think within let's say 5 or so minutes, 10 at most, we can round off. Wanted to say something? Okay. So moving ahead. So is this the last one? Oh, this is the only one I had. Yeah. So I think there was the pSESYNTH guidelines. So these were developed by, I don't know who actually did it. I think Charuta, Manuel, and Xavi, you did it together.
Yeah, we also involved. We had a workshop on the topic, so it was more like a team effort. We led a team effort, so it was not just us.
What I liked about it is so there's what I liked about it, first of all, is to be explicit about how do we collaborate. Like sometimes you have a collaboration, but the rules are not really explained, right? So you just sort of assume things. What I think is very nice to write this down explicitly. And also what I like a lot about how the guidelines are written, if I recall correctly, is that there are different roles. So it's not like one role, like one size fits all. You have to do this, then you are included in a publication or not. You're part of the team. No, there are like different roles. And I like that a lot. And in my case, especially like, I don't have really like access to data that I collect myself. And I like a lot that also the pSESYNTH team allows this, right? So it allows for people to contribute to the whole effort without having, by building a database or checking data sets or whatever, or like there are different roles that you could take. And I really like this diverse approach about there are multiple ways in which anyone can contribute. So this is a very practical thing, and I invite you all to check that out and to comment it. I think it's a nice document. It's a sort of I don't know if it's, well, I think it's still on Google Docs and you could comment it. So in that sense, I don't think it's really like a fixed frozen document, but more of a living document, although it's in good shape. Like it's, yeah, you could fix it as well. Any comments on
it is a like a living document, literally. So I think we definitely want to fix it and finalize it further and further. But I think we don't want it to get finalized to an extent it becomes too rigid, right? So that's exactly why we wanted to have this session. So I think, Chavi, if you want to pull out a slide or two, and if we can direct people where to find it, they don't have to look at it right now, but then they can come back to it, right? So if you want to share your screen and just show, because we did put together a couple of slides on that, just to give people an idea, those who were not in the room, especially at INCUA or elsewhere.
Shall we share our, let's say, the slides that we have prepared right now, or can we let Gerben kind of wrap up and then move to the, I mean, we can show up the document.
Yeah, you're right. Let's do it in that order. Let's.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll try to wrap this up because the last thing I wanted to say is very short. So it's the second bullet point, the last thing I wanted to share. So as I started the meeting already, like I like the discussion and I like the way we're going to. What I'm trying to do is talk to funders, to funding agencies. So I will talk at least to the national funding agency, and maybe also propose the ideas that we share today. I can also talk to some journals. Well, I will not make a big task of it to approach 25 journals or so, but I will just ask a few how they feel about this and sort of get their opinion. Perhaps they will also be interested to contribute and to participate in such a commentary article. I don't know, might be a bit sensitive politically for them to express themselves in an opinion piece, but let's see. I do think, yeah, coming back to the FAIR article, why that was a success. I do think that some of these some of the authors are actually editors of journals. So they, from their role of editor, I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there were some editors involved, and they sort of contributed. And if we can do it like that, so that it's not a researcher only perspective, but if actually funders and editors can also participate and express their opinion, and maybe even like be included as a co-author, then I think it's really like a very strong statement. And that comes, I mean, it's not a necessity if it's a bit sensitive for them, I guess. So if it's only like a researcher perspective, that's also fine with me. But I will try to float our ideas with them, see if they're interested, and see if they would actually be willing to sign off on it and be on the author list. I do think it could make it more impactful. Perhaps the phrasing should be then should then be a little bit more careful or something. But let's see how that worked on. But please let me know if you're interested in participating. And I think I'm planning to anyhow come back to all the pSESYNTH participants. If Manuel, Charuta, and Xavi, if you allow me to through you connect it to the whole group and then ask them to participate at the point. But if you have a question or an idea, then don't hesitate to send me an email. I didn't put it at the last slide, but here on the bottom right is my email address. So feel free to send me an idea if you have something. But I will otherwise I will get back to you later on. So thanks for allowing me to speak today, and yeah, that was my story.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this very interesting take on these topics, and it's actually quite refreshing to be able to have those discussions, combining the global north. We are I say we, I'm looking at Gerbrand directly. We're based in the global north, and we have our own perspective on things and on pressures, but talking a lot as well with people from the global south. And there's quite a lot, I think, based on all these discussions, like actually convergence of interest, right? We all see the same needs and the same will to do better. So I think there's quite a lot of I think interesting progress that should be done in the next few years. And I really like that idea of actually starting to talk with journal editors. Yep. Whether they'll sign up or not is a completely different topic, right? But yep, sometimes it's just about also putting it on their radar, and yep, maybe it would take a few years to to grow into something, but at least it's coming together. And yeah, so thank you, Gerbrand. And I think yes, that, and I think Xavi can share a few slides now, like just to make a quick summary of where our constitution is at. And yeah, it's a living document. I mean, we worked on that. I think it was this time last year, give or take. So I mean, obviously, not everything can be changed, but yeah, I think there's like lots of details, and we surely did not cover all the potential issues. So it's really important to work on this document. So maybe Xavi, you could also.
Yes,
it's already in the chat. That's perfect.
Yeah. I shared this collaboration and data sharing guidelines in the chat. So I think up until now, the link is only for you to comment. So add comments, so it's not in a edit mode, but yeah, this is why we wanted to keep a little bit an order. But yeah, it's a living document, and we organized a specific meeting last year about this. It was great, and it kind of plant the seed for today's session led by Gerben, who has been super interested and helpful, and I would like to thank also as well his his experience with the icon, which I think it resonates a lot with many topics here at pSESYNTH. So this is I mean, we don't have to go through all the document, but basically we have prepared a bit of slides here that are as a summary. So basically we came up with this who is who, which are the different roles that within pSESYNTH the different participants can take. It can be one, it can be one single participant, can be all of these, or can take part of in the different spheres, or just one, or just whatever, it depends. Well, basically, I don't know to what extent we should go now through these slides and be more specific. Probably it's not the time right now, because just to emphasize that we have this document. Please read it, and we will work from that with Gerben. And that's I guess what we wanted to say. So it's been, we thought about this session to be much more for you and provide and share experiences, because at the end is at individual level what we can do is the very basic. Then we could speak to the journal, the funding agencies, but if we don't change our individual culture and the way of doing things, there is no way that we can change open data practices. So I don't know. So I guess it's
No, but I think you raised a fair point as well, that our individual responsibility needs to be pretty much used. It's not just it's the it's how it's done. I think we many of us, I'm sure, from the south or the north, we kind of maybe sometimes a bit intellectually lazy to not just challenge how the culture and how things are done. But I think Charuta, you mentioned something about that. Or I'm sure many others, I don't remember everybody, but individuals can already make a difference, right? You can think about who helped you, and it's a small nugget. It's not going to change the system, but where you can start is yourself doing the right things. If I don't know, maybe when Rahab, or when she becomes like head of an institute, and she's contacted by the Global North researchers, she'll be like, yes, okay, but don't forget all the students or all the help that I put together in the field for your mission to be successful. And I think I don't think like anybody said it like in those words, but I think those ideas were around already, like in all those discussions, that there is an appetite for doing things differently. And I think that's something that we all need to maybe like an editor, when they receive a journal, they should ask themselves, oh no, there's no people on that no authors on that paper that from that region. But maybe as the authors, we should also like start adding like those bullet points to our checklist before submitting. Is that fair? That because I mean, I'm just thinking about myself, because I'm working on pollen data from Colombia on the moment, and the data have been published for 10 years, etc. But all these discussions that I'm hearing now are just like, maybe I'm just being lazy and just not like push a little more and ask. And some people, I mean, it's it's an amazing pollen record. So I mean, there's so many people that spend like so much time on that, and the whole study would not hold together without that effort. So maybe it just kind of reminded me that yes, the data are open access. Yes, I don't have to ask people or invite people, but maybe I should. And that's where, like, I think, moving on, I think I will really try to exercise that right to do the right thing and not just what I have to do or can do.
If I could add very quickly, coming from Global South and having experienced how Global North works, how international collaborative projects work, which I have been working on since my master's, if I could say so, because that master's was archaeology master's. Archaeology always gets more, international kind of teams and whatnot, and people do work with each other. What I want to say that not everything what happens in Global South as well is equitable. So even Global South can actually uplift itself by learning from this. So I think Rahab is nodding her head. I can see that. So it is very important for people to basically look at this various perspective, and that goes, I think, both directions. It's not just the Global North that needs to pay attention to. Even the Global South, we do have a very higher cascading kind of system, hierarchies, which Rahab already spoke about. So those hierarchies are deep rooted. Those hierarchies, the barriers we have to break. So here, I think we are still in, in sir and madam mode. If you're talking to a person who is senior to you and whatnot, it's a very cultural thing. So once again, that also comes into the way of the way you do science. And then that is where I want to get to actually. Jabran, you mentioned that how to pull in editors and perhaps even funders into it. So what I think is being equitable, or having equitable practices is not important for the social context in general, but it's also important for the science. So I think, believe it or not, or we tend to lose the sight of the bigger picture that we are in this for science, right? So I mean, we struggle, we have our individual struggles, we have your like other sort of operational struggles and whatnot, but in we signed up for this as a researcher to do troubleshooting for hours and hours and for decades of our life to make sure that whatever science we do is statistically significant, or at least significant in that sense that it basically stands the test of time. So what I'm trying to say here, that having equitable practices is not important in the social context only, it is important for science. So I think this is the way I think we could basically make sure that we sort of use this tagline to pitch this topic to the journals or to funders, saying that, having these equitable practices and their very ready connection with science. So how we improve many voices in science, it makes a difference for science itself. And be it any science. So I don't know whether you said it already in an icon paper, for the environmental change perspective and whatnot. But if we didn't so, then that can be one of our highlights of the publication that we may write one day. So I think this is very important that we pitch it the right way to the right audience, and that way they just come around. It would be a very good idea to include them, by the way. It would be a very fantastic idea, but because it basically then reaches to different circles. The circles who might not take us very seriously, just if we could just come up as a researcher group or working group doing something, they might not reach, to the core of that other group we are trying to hit, like journals or funders. But it would be a very good idea if we already have some like-minded people who we already sort of know, who already are thinking about it and who could be happy to sort of contribute with their thoughts and words. That could be a very good idea.
Thanks a lot for this additional input, Charuta. So, as I said, I'm really at the start of this. I have not written a single letter. But thanks for this meeting. It really inspires me a lot, and I see that it resonates a lot. And I see that in this group, yeah, there are so many experiences and ideas, and I'm getting excited to put things on paper and slowly build from that and share it with you and get your additional inputs. And so I'm very excited to move it forward, but it's still in an early stage. So don't expect a manuscript tomorrow. And also I feel that it should grow probably in phases, right? To get really to avoid that this will be like a single person, which is not the case, because I already have a lot of input now, but it still, after putting things on paper, it's important to then get still additional feedback from all of you. So yeah, and also my attention is to bring it beyond pSESYNTH. Maybe good to also clarify that. So I think pSESYNTH is really for me a very nice group of people with so much expertise, with so many different backgrounds. But ultimately, I would scope it, I think, maybe like something like environmental sciences, something around that, where people do field work a lot. I think it's really connected to fieldwork, and that can be any kind of environmental sciences where you take samples, whether it's a core or an air sample of today's CO2 concentration.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily environmental sciences, because technically speaking, archaeology and anthropology wouldn't fall in it, unfortunately. But if you think that all the three themes of pSESYNTH, paleoecology, paleoclimatology, and archaeology can be included in it. So it could be sort of interdisciplinary kind of setting as well. Of course, it has to be manageable, but think about it.
Yeah, maybe I don't know the right term, but I think it should be like all sciences that have field work.
Field-based sciences, or historic sciences is one of the names which are usually seen, where you basically have some kind of connection with the space you work with.
Can you say that again?
So I mean, historic sciences, called technically historic sciences. So even all the way from geology to, archaeology, or even anthropology to an extent, which is part and parcel of archaeology, or other way around, if you want to call it. So then all of these could be, But I think, let's think about it. We can even coin a term. If it comes to that, we can even coin a term. And I think annoy people, with fair and then care and then icon and then another term, an acronym coined, perhaps.
So Colin, while I guess Gerben was presenting and everybody was sharing their thoughts, Colin was, busy and putting many of these sticky notes in our Jamboard. So if Colin wanna explain a little bit what.
Yeah, so during the discussion, I added 2 new slides, one based on kind of identifying the issues that were coming out of the discussion. So from Gerben's slides, as well as some of the input from everyone else. So I tried to catch as many as I could and somewhat organize it. And there's a second slide after this, which is more about the solutions that have been talked about a little bit.
Great.
There's quite a variety, and I'm sure we could put some other effort into this and clean it up a lot further. But I think, there's really quite a lot of good ideas, and some, I think everyone picked up some new ones as well. So,
wonderful.
I put that in there and we can tweak it further.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks again for the inspiring talk. It was really nice. I think we're all very ready for this.
Nice. Thanks a lot for sharing this. I will, I will read it and summarize it and get back to you.
Yeah.
I also need to leave right now for my next meeting, unfortunately. So
that's good. I mean, well, it's sad that you have to leave, but we want you to stay, but it's okay. Thanks again, Gerben. It's been fantastic, super inspiring, and thank you everybody for participating as well and sharing your thoughts. So I guess we now can take the break, 15 minutes. Or 30 minutes. Well, I don't know. What's the consensus? What do you guys think?
Let's restart at quarter two, whatever hour you are in.
So 15 minutes break. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I mean, we're just gonna chat about what to do next, so it's not like we're gonna have some intense working to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you, Gerben.
Yes, thanks, Gerben.
Thank you.
And let's reconvene in